Hey, I have the pleasure to host Kent for the second time, and he's back to talk about collations. Hi, Kent.
Hey Yusuf, how are you doing, man?
All good, all good. Maybe, as usual, introduce yourself.
Yeah, of course. My name's Kent Martin. I'm the product manager at Databricks. I've been here for just over 4 years. I work on things like geospatial and helping out the team working on the query engine, the variant data type, but most recently in the last year, focused on all things kind of legacy data warehouse core SQL constructs. So scripting, store procedures, recursive CTEs, and of course, collations. Collations is one of the features that I'm not sure everyone even everyone knows about, but it's certainly very helpful and very common when coming from when I think about coming from migrating from legacy data warehouses. So yeah, happy to talk about collations today. It's a pretty cool feature.
Yeah, and actually that was the main reason. Only few people knows about collation, and that's why I wanted to bring you to be able to understand this is the reason why we have collations, why they are helpful, and how we can use them inside the DBC.
Yeah, let's talk about collations for a second. Like, what are collations? Collations are rules that you can apply to how you sort and compare strings. So if I want to ignore, the casing of my words, so instead of there being a capitalized version or a lowercase version, and always compare these as equal, I can ignore the case of the words by using a collation specific rule. So there are other rules we can apply: case sensitivity, accent sensitivity. We can use language specific rules. There's also the ability to trim trailing spaces. So again, there's a number of ways in which you can apply a collation rule. And in the end, I think it makes just everything a little bit easier to sort of standardize upon how the data is processed and analyzed, but also it sort of cleans up your code. You no longer insert lower and upper and these other kind of expressions around. And the added benefit of using collations, this is the part that I think is like really cool, is that it can actually drive significant performance improvements by applying a collation as opposed to using things like upper and lower. So the actual query execution is more efficient when having a collation applied.
Yeah, I remember I used to use a lot this upper to lower to make sure that I have the same string across all my text, and that was a nightmare. And I mean, with with collations, things can get much easier. Reduce the number of functions, and as you mentioned, all their benefit is to improve the performance, which is something we're looking for.
Yeah, we wanted to sort of simplify Databricks for customers who, like, this is such a common way in which you're working with data, right? I want to compare values, I want to sort values. Of course, you want to do this in the most efficient way possible. So building out collations makes a ton of sense. And then we have kind of like an endless stream of customers who are moving from legacy data warehouse, enterprise data warehouse platforms like Teradata and SQL Server and others. And collations were used commonly across those implementations. And so when customers are looking to migrate, they want to have a story which is, get me like to like, kind of very similar or as similar as possible when I get to the new system. And so building out collations at that point just becomes sort of a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And we know we've already got, hundreds of customers that are using collations because it went into public preview in DBR version, I think it was 16.2, maybe it was 16.3. But since then, we've kind of incrementally added new capabilities. So the first version was case-insensitivity, accent-insensitivity sort of managing, and all of the language versions. And then from there, we added RTRIM. And then in the most recent Databricks runtime version, 17.1, we've added support for collations to be specified at the catalog or schema level. So it just, it's like trickle down, apply my collation rules to all my tables and the appropriate columns within those tables. So yeah, we've continued to advance collations since it's come out.
That's amazing. And can you show us how we can, like an example of how to use collation inside DB SQL?
All right, Yusuf, here we are. I'm attached to my SQL warehouse. I'm using a notebook here just to kind of go vertically through it, so everyone can easily follow along. All right, yeah, I've got my catalog and schema set up. We've got our first sort of example here. I've rerun this just to sort of make it easier to walk through the code and the results of the output from each cell. So in this case, I can actually see what the default collation is that is applied in the system. So when you use Databricks, by default, the collation is UTF-8 binary. So this is the way in which your data will be sorted and compared, right, using this UTF-8 binary collation. Now, if you want to see what that means, let's go ahead. I've created a table, and this table includes a few interesting characters, right? There's some accents, there's some capitalization that's different. Basically, this is data that's coming in a non-standard way, right? I have capitalized, I have lowercase, I've got names that are spelled the same. There's other characters in here. So you want to see how this works in Databricks today, just by default. If I go ahead and say select from this table and order by the first name, you can see I get capitalized letters first, which is the structure of UTF-8 binary, right? I get the capitalized letters first, and then I get the lowercase letters, and then there's the characters that have accents, at the end. That's not what you want. That's not what I wanted. What I do want, though, is to apply a standard set of rules, and I can do that by applying a default collation. So I can go ahead and alter this table and apply a default collation. In this case, I'll choose UTF-8 LCase. So I want to basically do sorting and comparisons as if all the data was lowercase. So here I've altered, let's just see what I've done here. This is column test. This is the table. Oh yeah. And then I can actually, this is neat too, right? Just because I have a collation at the table level doesn't mean I can't have a different collation for a different column. I don't know how common that is, but hey, the system is flexible. You can do many things. I can have different collations as needed. Anytime I go ahead and alter an existing column to apply a collation, I'm always going to follow best practices here and recompute statistics. Good for me. Okay, so now if I have an existing table and I want to apply a collation, what I'm basically showing here is I need to go and alter the table and alter those columns. So there's a few that I've done here. My demo is a little out of order, so bear with me. I'll scroll back up here just to say we have UTF-8 LCase at the table level. We have Unicode, Case-Insensitive, and Accent-Insensitive at the column level. And then here I'm applying UTF-8 LCase RTRIM on a different column, a new column that I'm adding. I hope you can keep track of all these columns because I almost am struggling.
I can.
So one question here is, what's the RTRIM going to do? This is a cell that I'll just run here to show you. If I have text that I say I have trailing spaces, clearly you can see the trailing spaces on this side. Would this return false or true? With an RTRIM based collation, it's trimming the blank spaces at the end, and of course it does return true. So yes, that's how RTRIM works. Okay, so let's go back to our table where I've added specific collations. I can do a describe. Now I can see that I have different collations for different columns. Okay. Previously, I loaded the same data, or I have the data that we looked at previously already loaded in this table. So if I go back to my first name column, which is case-insensitive and accent-insensitive now, and I run this query, select first name, and do an order by, you can see now the order makes sense, and everyone's happy. And now I get the results that I was looking for. So if I run down here again, Yusuf, I snuck one in here for you, buddy. Just to emphasize the point about, do I need to work with lower or upper? So I've created a new table. I've applied a default collation to the table. So again, this is not column-specific collations. I can apply it at the table level. I've added some new values into my table, Yusuf with a capital Y. And if I come down here to my simple query and say select where name equals Yusuf, but I use lowercase, it still returns the right result, which is doing the same thing as applying the lower. But in this case, when working with larger scale data, you're going to see efficiencies when using the collation, which is great. The last thing I want to show around collations is just what's happened in the Databricks runtime 17.1 version, which is support at the catalog and schema level. So here I can say, let's create a new schema and apply a default collation. Again, this is great because the collation will cascade down to the lower entities within that schema. So the tables and columns where it could be applied will honor the collation that's set. So here I've just taken the same data and I've put it, here I'm working with a new table called test2. This is all going into that schema that I just created. You can see when I describe the table, there's no collation value specified for these columns. But when I run this query, again, when I say select first name and order by, I get the right result. So again, it's applying the collation from the schema level down. So that's it. Collations, I can apply them at the expression level. I can apply them at the table, schema, and catalog level. And they're kind of easy to get started with.
Yeah, so to improve the performance and the benefit from the inheritance, you can go to the column level, which means you have full flexibility to do anything you want and make sure that you can backport what you have actually on your legacy data warehouse to DB SQL without any problem. That's awesome. Yeah.
Let me just show you in the docs.
Of course. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's great doc reference pages here on the collations and how to work with them. More importantly, I wanted to show just all of the possible collations that are supported. So can you count those up as I scroll? No, there's a lot.
No,
this is all the language specific collations that we can apply. So, for anyone in the world, this is really like an important feature, especially for, global, the globalized world, right? So, in Europe where they speak many different languages with different accents, and across the world, it's not just always English, right? So, and not always the English alphabet. So collations can help you out across that. The last thing I wanted to show was that we do have a pretty good blog. This blog talks about all of the expressions and how to use them with examples that you can follow along. If you have Greek data, this is a great case. And then the last part here is just explaining the differences between performance that I think is worth calling out. So yeah, there's blogs, there's docs. We'll make sure the notebook gets shared. Yusuf, thanks so much for having me on.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you, Kent.
See you, Yusuf.